Should I go ahead? Okay. All right, Mayor and City Council, thanks for your time this evening. I don't know that we're on yet. I'm going to double check. Have Carrie double check. Are we on now? Okay, perfect. All right. Can you hear me? There we go. All right, Mayor and City Council, before you, I have a hard copy of preliminary draft, first draft of a budget here. So what you have, I'll go through my memo here in just a moment, but when you actually get to our budget portion, for tonight's purposes, I just included the general fund because when we're talking about the levy, that's what we need to focus on. And then at our next meeting, I'll have the entire budget. But right now, so if you notice it looks a little thin, all you have is a general fund because that's all that impacts our tax levy. So if you just bear with me, I'll kind of go through a high-level overview. And then when I'm done, we'll turn it over to the fire department and then to Public Works Director Hartman and let them present their budget requests. Each year, Minnesota cities are required to prepare and adopt a proposed budget and property tax levy on a calendar year basis. So we start January 1st and end December 31st. As a city with a population over 500, we're required to hold what's called a truth in taxation hearing. That process requires that the proposed levy be certified to the county auditor by September 30th. This allows property owners to receive notice and then they have an opportunity to provide input before the city adopts the final budget and tax levy. Once the preliminary levy is adopted, and it has to be done so by just September 30th, we can reduce the levy amount, but we can't increase it. So sometimes we'll set it a little bit higher and then work to decrease it before the final levy is set, and sometimes there's no changes made. The levy is comprised of the general fund, economic development authority, and debt service. A public truth and taxation hearing must be held between November 24th and December 29th, and then the final levy and certification has to be done to both the county auditor and the Department of Revenue by December 29th. So last year's levy was set at $1,287,042, which ended up being about a 14% increase from the prior year. The proposed levy for 2026 that I have in the packet this evening is at $1,377,135, and that would reflect a proposed 7% increase over what was collected in 2025. And then within this, so we've got the general fund, and that would increase $90,872. The EDA levy would remain the same at $20,000, and then our debt service slightly decreases from $136,396 to $135,617. So you'll just see in that table here, we got general fund, EDA, debt service, and compares 24 final, 25 final is proposed this evening, and then the change from 2025. And then the next page, this is where it gets kind of confusing for people, and I know we don't like this, but if you guys will recall when we had the audit, we talked about our general fund reserves, and so we've been setting aside money for capital outlay expenditures. And so right now what I've got is our proposed 2026 general fund expenditures. Those total $3,323,174. Our proposed general fund revenues are $2,529,421, and you'll see that is, our expenditures exceed revenues, but that's deliberate, and we call that planned deficit spending. So we're using previously set aside capital outlay reserves. So basically, it just means that the budget would be balanced except for the purpose planned down spending of our budget.
I wish we could call that capital reserve spending as opposed to deficits.
Yeah, I know, it bothers.
It would feel better, but it's the same thing.
Yes. Just kind of a high level before we get into the different department requests, but so things to point out, we again make sure that we maintain a minimum assigned fund balance of 50% of the annual budget. So that's important just in case for some reason our LGA payments or something would come in or something would happen, and we would have sufficient reserves to fall back on. So we're in good shape there. The other thing, the LGA for this year just it's hardly increased at all. I think it was like $416. And then property taxes. So when you put the property tax in the LGA, that basically makes up 80% of our general fund revenue. So when you guys hear a lot about LGA, when you go to meetings or conferences, it's because it's such a big share of our revenue for the budget, as every small city. And then, obviously, personnel costs are a big portion of our budget. I put in a 3% cost of living adjustment after talking to most of the nearby cities. That's pretty much what most people, some are putting in 4%, but 3% is pretty common. We also have a 3% step increase, and that's just to try to keep on top of, we did an updated pay structure back in 2024 that was adopted. The Personnel Committee and the COG, we worked really hard on that, and just trying to stay current because we were really far behind. So, and then another big one is health insurance costs. They increased 12.24%, and we just moved to the Health Insurance Consortium. Working with our health insurance agent, he has kind of like done a comparison if we were with Blue Cross Blue Shield before, and we would have been much higher than 12.24%. He's still going to do some shopping around and get back to us, but it's very unlikely we're going to come in with anything better than 12.24% increase. And then para, Social Security, Medicare, those numbers all stayed the same. There's a new ad this year with paid family and medical leave program, which city staff is still learning about. But consulting with the COG, I was advised to insert 0.4% of our total payroll as the number into the budget, which I did. And then something else to highlight here before we go through kind of the line items. So some of the big things we recently had a meeting with our IT consultant, CTS, and we got some big changes coming with that. And they're not changes that we have an option to do it or not do it. It's just the age we live in with technology and the bad actors out there. So we have been, gradually increasing our IT budget in recent years. I know compared to when I started, it was hardly anything, and now it's unbelievable. But we did an RFP a couple of years ago and found that what we have right now is the lowest of what was out there, and we just have to do what we need to do to protect our information, and it's frustrating. But so there's some big costs with that. We increased. Trying to think, the park capital outlay, put in $50,000 for that again. Some of the things that we, have to keep up with, the civil defense sirens have to be replaced, putting aside money for our buildings. So, nothing, no fluff, I guess, if you will. It's like stuff we need for the city, and if we don't do it now, it's gonna come back and it's gonna get us when we don't have money set aside for it, so. What I'll have for you at the next meeting then will be our enterprise funds, which is, water, sewer, storm, and then also our debt service funds. And I'll talk to Shannon Sweeney with David Drone Associates, talk about just reviewing our rates and when it's appropriate to do a rate increase. We did not do a rate increase in 2025 to try to give utility customers a break, but looking ahead to our upcoming projects, we're gonna have to get back on track. And do incremental increases to keep up with that service. So with that for tonight, I think I've covered my portion. I'll let the departments present their requests. I included mostly everything in there. There's one line item I did not include, and I can get to that later. But I worked really hard to try to keep it as low as possible and to accommodate the requests and just what I mentioned, IT, building, personnel costs. I wasn't able to go any lower than a 7% at this time. So right now, we'll turn over to the department heads, and then at the end, we'll need to make sure we set up another meeting to get the preliminary levy adopted in September yet. So that's what I've got for now. I'll turn it over to the fire department, and we'll let them get out of here before Andrew with their meeting coming up. So turn it over to you guys.
All right, well, thank you. I guess we'll just jump right into it. We submitted everything that, all these numbers that I'm looking at right here. So, I didn't know if he had something he was gonna say right away. So,
I did number things, but, if you just go, to where it says fire department budget, so we kind of go through probably maybe a quarter of the way. Just get past, the numbers and stuff, sorry.
Just past the, just past that. Keep going.
Yep. This is a page that looks like this. Next time
City Hall, there we go. Oh, she's got that in there. All right. Okay, what I had suggested for starting off with wages and salaries, I had suggested a slight increase there to accommodate for wages for both the assistant chief and the, we were thinking it was going to be the assistant chief and should I say, the two assistant chiefs, but it would be the assistant chief and the president, because those seem to be the two workhorses for the department besides, I'd just like to make sure that they receive an allocation for their, which was, I believe it was 1,000 each, correct? Yep. So that's where that extra in the wages and salaries comes to for up to 12.5 instead of the 10. And then calls and trainings, I increased a little over 3% there just because of the number of calls that everybody's been making. We've been having really good turnout this year, so our numbers are pretty strong for what they're going to need for their calls. And the trainings, take for instance, one of the last calls we had, a medical call that had 16 people in attendance for a medical. That's a pretty strong number. So just as an example, we've had really good turnout, and I'm really impressed with the people, and I want to make sure they're awarded appropriately. So then the next few line items aren't really anything that we mess with. Those are set, fire relief payments in there. I believe Trent has more to discuss with anything along there. Operating supplies, I did increase that a little bit too. As you know, everything in price is going way up. We've got a lot more stuff that we need to be able to supply. We're looking at trying to get other defibrillators. There's other medical supplies as far as equipment for ditch packs. Sorry, not ditch packs. Of course, we need some of those for the new guys, but to make sure that we're fully equipped in our AVAS bags, active violent active shooter bags, to make sure that in the event that we do have to play in one of those situations, we've got everything we need to make sure everybody's protected, and we got all the medical gear in there that we need as well. Fuel, I did list a number beside the fuel only because the fuel prices is going up. I don't know that that's, I mean, that is what it is. It's not really something that we really have control over. But I did list that it would probably see a little bit of an increase. Repairs and maintenance. So that's of the equipment itself. So, of course, there's always increase in that. There was the situation, or is the situation, with the ladder truck. As we've discussed in the earlier meetings, we have opted away from trying to repair that ladder because of the expense in it and the value of the truck. So there's only a slight increase in the amount from last year of 33,750 to 35. Again, roughly trying to keep with that 3%. There's a,
Hey, Vern, can I interrupt you a minute?
yeah,
Are we looking at the same thing? Because what you're saying on increases, none of those are on my sheet. So I'm getting really confused when you're like, we're doing an increase of 1,000 for the wages, but mine says 10,000, and then you just said another one, so like none of my
Yeah.
increases are on my sheet.
see,
So I think these are what she has for 2026.
So I'm super confused. Like the one you just said, repairs and maintenance, mine is the exact same as 2025.
yeah, so,
Like everything you said, there's an increase, I don't have an increase.
okay. So now I understand. So there was a misconnect somewhere along the line. So back to the wages and salary, this still shows 10, and we're good with that? Okay. So forget whatever I just said about wages and salaries, I guess. Calls and training, that, like I said, that number is up because of the, well, not only the addition of personnel that we have, but the number of calls that they've been making, so.
I think we wanted to add like the training officer to that, right?
To the calls and training wages?
Yeah. Just like your annual.
Is that where that additional amount comes from, Trent? Is by adding the training officers?
No, it's included in the first line.
That's what I thought it was. That was in wages and salaries. Yes. So yeah, calls and trainings is just calls and trainings. That's, okay. And then, the operating supplies listed here is a bump up of 500 as opposed to what it was last year. Which I had actually thought we were gonna go for, ask for 26 for that instead of 25.5, but we have not used all of this year, so there is a chance, but like I said, there's a lot of different operating supplies that we do need, so that's why. So, but if what's in the projection is 25.5, and then I think that's what we'll stick with. Instead of asking for 26. Okay. I see the fuel in this sheet, in the pamphlet, remains the same, although I, you know, like I said, I project that that it would go up a little bit, which, you know, that's just because fuel normally does. Repairs and maintenance. I see this remain the same too, Trent?
Yeah, that's what I thought you put in there for 750.
All right, well,
Definitely better.
I suppose it is possible we could hold that with not having to do repairs on the ladder itself, so.
Is there a new sheet that we should just take a quick copy of? Or,
No, it's in your packet.
well, we have that one, but it sounds like he's reading out the different.
Well, there was a sheet that I had put together at one time, and then, yeah, Trent and I reviewed some numbers, and, yeah, so I was actually going over the wrong sheet, so, because we had discussed 33,750 to, so that number would remain the same for the repairs and maintenance. And then, sorry. Building maintenance, the building maintenance, for, I guess, more of the minor items on the building itself. We're asking for that to remain the same because we do have some other, facilities, asked, so we want to make sure we keep that, which is a little further down the list, but we want to make sure we keep that 25,000 in there for the facilities.
So can I interrupt you on that, Vern?
Yeah.
I did not put the 25,000 in there because, and I'll give you guys my reason why. First of all, we're struggling to keep it at 7%, but we initially put that 25,000 in when we were doing the study for the fire hall that you guys had asked for that. And I took it out because at this point, we've completed that portion of it and we don't have 25,000. I mean, I'd like to put 25,000 into City Hall and, you know, our capital outlay. That's why I took it out, because there's no way I can get this to work. Keep it at 7% with the 25,000. And I figured, I don't know what your guys' concrete plans are with that 25,000. With what we already have completed, thinking that was my rationale. So I did take that out.
25,000 was to include the cost of the parking lot, and the patches that we had on the roof would be enough to get us through the year. Sometime next year, I don't know how long them patches are gonna last that we did up there. There was that one phase that we looked at doing a more heavy-duty patch. That patch was right around 10,000 for that patch. I do not have the quotes back on the parking lot yet. I had asked for a couple of different quotes. There's one to look at redoing just the blacktop. I had asked for the blacktop on the west and the north side of the building to include the apron in front of the north door, the apron in front of the northwest door, and the settled apron in front of the main entry on the west side of the building, the glass door into the office area. And again, like I said, all the blacktop, just on those two sides, nothing on the east side of the building. The cutoff line would be basically right where the telephone pole is there on the northeast corner of the building. There is a bunch of concrete from where there used to be a back-end dock from the previous owners of the building. That used to be a warehouse, so I don't know, without having those, and without them being able to tear into the ground, I don't know what extent they're gonna have to do, if they're gonna have to pull all of that concrete out of there in order to get a good base, in order so that when we do put new blacktop in that parking lot, it doesn't just settle and break apart. So like I said, I asked for a few breakdowns so that we could divide everything out, but I have not received them numbers back yet. I had reached out to a couple of different companies. DMI is the only one working on a quote right now. None of the others returned the calls. So that's where we're at, and that's why I was asking to keep that 25,000 in there, was for the parking lot and to make sure that we could get that roof done. If we didn't get one of them done this year, we could make sure we got them both done next year, although I was hoping to get one of them done this year. I don't know, with the condition of the blacktop in that parking lot, trying to get that through the winter is gonna be pretty rough, especially on that west side of the building. It's breaking up pretty bad right there. If you turn the wheels on the trucks as you're backing in or pulling out at all while you're still on that blacktop, it'll actually tear chunks out of the parking lot. So, I know we've discussed it for a couple of different years now, trying to get it done, and it hasn't been getting done. We thought we were gonna do it this year with the blacktopping projects going around town from the replacement of the road work, basically, from the water lines and sewer and everything getting all redone. But since that project got pushed off till next year, that means, that was the discussion, was looking at pushing off the parking lot as well.
Where do you have money set aside? Because what we could do is carry that money over at year end if you don't use it this year, and that would help us.
It'd be the same account 535.
Okay, let's see. Okay, I'll look up and see what we got, because that would be what we should do then, is if you're not gonna use it this year, then we should just carry it forward. Normally, we don't do that, but in this situation, I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, well, with the expenses that we've already had, and then, if we was to do the building, I still don't, or the roof, I don't foresee that eating up that amount, so we would
Okay.
have a rollover amount. Sorry, saliva glands still don't work, so makes it interesting to talk a lot. So, moving down from buildings and maintenance then, professional services, that's a lot of different things that we have people come in and work on. So that only went up 200 from last year. Again, that's pretty close to that 3%. Physicals, again, that's up another 200. Again, we've got more people in the department and the cost of everything increasing. It's unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Communications, that also went up slightly, just because of the anticipation of getting more pagers, and if we need batteries or anything for the radios we already have, or anything to do with the iPads in the trucks, the iPad mounts, those kind of things. And then scrolling down, dues and subscriptions remain the same. So uniforms, as listed here at 437, in last year's budget was listed as a clothing allowance. But there's been some discussion back and forth about what's been allowed for said clothing. So that's why we want to make sure it's stressed that it's uniforms that we're purchasing. That's why it's changed from reading clothing to uniforms. The uniforms could be anything from the actual Class A uniforms that we would wear to the duty shirts that we would wear. Again, it's not regular clothing. It's not like we're buying pants or, just random stuff for family members or anything. Everything that it would be used for would be just department members and apparel that would be appropriate for our duties. Meeting and education, there's an increase in that one. That's paired with some conversation in the new policy. One of the things that was added to the new personnel policy for the fire department is there is a recommended requirement for, I guess that'd be the way to say it since the policy hasn't been passed yet, but a recommended requirement for everybody on the department to attend at least one regional training per every 2 years. So I wanted to make sure there's an amount allotted for that. We want to make sure that we have funds for people to be able to do that. We've seen a slight decrease in the amount of people that are participating in those trainings. Those are very good trainings that are hosted by quite reliable sources, whether it's from the State Fire School, so hosted by companies like SESCS. There's other ones, Officers Training Schools, Chiefs Conference. So there's just different meeting and education opportunities out there that I want to make sure everybody's got the opportunity to attend. And then into the capital outlay, I think that's where Trent's gonna come in a little bit, Trent and Spencer. There is some things that we were asking for or needing to purchase, I should say, would be the way to say it. One of them is our pressure washer at the station. Is not a heated pressure washer. It relies on the warm water that we have in our water heater. Our water heater is electric water heater. So we're looking at replacing that since it's not functioning right most of the time anyway, to replace it with a actual heated pressure washer. So that was from Scarpel's, right? Yeah, from Scarpel pressure washers. There's a decon dryer for our gear and helmets and such. We have the ability to wash our turnout gears, whether it would be the jacket or the bunkers. But that's not all where all the contaminants lie. A lot of them is on the packs themselves, on the straps from the packs, on the helmets, on our gloves. The decon washer gives us the opportunity to be able to put these things in a sterilization chamber and get them actually clean. So with all the different contaminants that are out there, it's great to be able to get everything cleaned off of us and off of our equipment, so that we're not just handling it once we do take our packs off. Normally with those, what we've been doing over the years is just basically hosing off at the scene. We did add with 4311, it does have a decon station on it, but that does not completely decontaminate to the ability that this decon washer would do for our packs and our helmets and gloves. And then there is other things that I think is going to be touched on, such as radios. The radios all need to be changed out. Trent, is that something you were going to touch on, the radios? So, Trent, if you want the mic.
Well, hello, everyone. I think everyone knows me. I'm Trent Talley, 424 Thomas Drive, Assistant Fire Chief. So one of the things, just looking at replacing our radios, this would be the radios for the trucks and for the radios for all personnel. Radios do unfortunately wear out over time, and being able to replace these with parts and new batteries is becoming more and more complex and complicated. So that's one of the things that the county emergency management team is advising us that, hey, you really need to look at getting those updated. And so we do have money in the CIP for that. So there's money set aside in the amount of $85,000. We will look to fund the rest of it through gambling. And so all of the money can come through that. The estimate they received was $112,487. Did you want to talk about the truck? Sure. Yeah.
All right, hello everybody. So Spencer Colas, Captain, 102 Hawk Avenue. So if you look back at the capital outlay, the jump up from 25, which was at 146,000 to 685 for a 2026 projection. If you look on the right side, what we'd like to source from CIP is $600,000 to put towards a new ladder truck. We would also like to take $100,000 from our gambling fund to put towards that ladder truck. If you flip to the next page in the packet, it shows the breakdown for the CIP basically for everything that we have set aside in there. The top three line items are for our three main trucks that we use for replacement. So what we're doing essentially is the money that's allocated in there right now would be pulling that money ahead to put towards this purchase. And then actually on the next page is an actual lease quote for that ladder truck. So we've gone ahead and spec'd out a new ladder truck. The department is in agreement that this would be our best route to go to replace that truck and not repair our current one. So what we would be looking at here would be a down payment of $700,000. So that's where we'd like to source the $100,000 from gambling and the rest out of CIP. And then we would do a 7-year lease on that, which would be annual payments of $194,000, which, that would come out of our CIP in the hopes that hey, we'd have some more money in gambling to put towards the rescue or grass rig or other trucks.
Can I ask, Spencer, this is part of the, what do you want to call it, the cooperative bid, or so it's competitively, it's went through that process, or what do you, state contract, I guess, if you will, I can't think of the right words.
That's our understanding, yes, is it
Okay.
meets that requirement.
Perfect.
So, you know, moving forward, the other option would be the 10-year at 149. So the amount of money that the city is putting toward the trucks right now in the CIP, that would essentially cover that amount. It would just all be going to that one truck. So a couple of things about that truck. Vern has mentioned, hey, there was a couple welds that broke on the ladder. So this truck is essentially out of service. It doesn't work. This is one of the most versatile pieces of equipment that we have if there's a fire scene. It really provides a lot of safety and protection for our firefighters if they need to be on the roof, if they need to fight a fire. I know those don't happen every day, but when they do happen and other communities call us for help, this is the best tool that we have to fight the fire with. Another thing to think of is the age of our current ladder it's a 1999. NFPA says 25 years. Once it's over 25 years, it shouldn't be in service anymore. So we've met the full life cycle of our current truck, trying to get as much out of it as we possibly can. But unfortunately, you know, we had it inspected last December. It was fully good to go. Not sure what happened to the ladder, but over this summer, at some point, there was a crack that must have developed. It was a weak weld or something, we don't know. But as it sits right now, it is out of service.
Hold on a second, I got a couple of questions. So we're saying 700 plus the 125 a year for 7 years? Is that
149.
149? Is that? Why wouldn't we do 10? Since it should have a 25-year life?
Or more, yeah.
Right. That's a heck of a down payment.
It's a large down payment.
Well, and it looks like, I've never liked this CIP sheet, just so you know. If I read that right, in 2026, where you guys will have, plus I'm old and Bonnie, what's the number we got in the CIP for you guys?
So down on the bottom, what that number would be 600 and, correct, the 689,
I
Trent?
think, like, doesn't it say a balance of
The balance would be
398,000?
Right here, this one.
plus then the 152.
So you'd be going over the CIP by 400 grand, or 300 grand?
Yeah, so we'd roughly,
That would be left over after that.
yeah,
Oh, you have that number in the grid?
correct, yep.
Okay.
So the other thing to note on the truck that we do have spec'd out here, it's a 107-foot ascendant ladder. I would say it's a very desired truck within the fire industry. So I mean, if some unforeseen circumstances ever came about, you know, I think this truck would be very saleable as well.
And we would not own it at the end of the 10 years, though, right?
Yeah, why lease and not just buy
It's a
it?
lease.
I
It's my
believe,
understanding
yeah,
it's to own.
yeah.
So once it's
Oh,
done,
okay.
we pay
Yep.
it.
Okay.
Yep, it's paid off.
Okay. So at the end of the 7 years, it'd be the 700 plus.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then they'll try to give you another fire truck, a newer
Yeah, they
one.
would.
Yep.
It's not bad.
Yep. You know, I guess the other thing on the ladder truck itself, I know it's a big dollar amount, but to Trent's point, you know, there's a wide variety of calls that these can be used for, and it's not just, you know, the fires, it's high and low rescue, grain bin rescues. There's, if you watch the news, there's all sorts of different calls starting to happen. So I think it'd be a good truck to have. The other thing to note is there are only 3 ladder trucks in the county. It would be Mankato, Eagle Lake, and Good Thunder currently.
I don't think, I'm not questioning the need for it, I'm just trying to figure out how we
Sure.
pay for it. Making sure. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm looking, well, we have 400,000 short, where are we gonna find that? But if it's already in the grid, that makes more sense then. Okay.
So I don't know much about ladder trucks, but why this truck compared to maybe a cheaper one? Is this one just the best that we need, or?
So a couple of things. So in 2027, there's going to be some new standards for diesel engines. They have extra engines that they're not going to be able to get through in that amount of time. So they're really pushing, hey, if you can get this in 2026, we'll manufacture it. You can have it next year. That is very, very fast for a fire truck. Typically, those are 3 or 4 years out. So they want to get rid of all of their 2026 diesel engines before the new environmental requirements come into play. So that's a special program that Pierce has. And this truck is very versatile. It only has a single rear axle. It can go to a lot of places our current truck can go. It's 107 feet tall. We don't have any buildings obviously that tall, but it's more important for a horizontal reach so that we can be in a parking lot, we can be in the road, and still get to the top of that roof. So it can reach 100 feet horizontal. Our current truck is 68 feet.
So it can almost go vertical?
It can do what? Yeah, horizontal, negative, up, and, yeah.
I don't care what it is, you're not getting me 107 feet in the air. It's not a big enough seatbelt for him. Okay. Anything else on your guys' request? I guess I'm always not concerned, but just curious. I don't understand the gambling piece and how that, because you do have revenue, on your side. How does that kind of come in, the gambling revenue, donations, and also you guys do a lot of granting too, so how does that kind of figure into the numbers, as we move forward?
So the gambling, I think we always, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but we always kind of predict maybe 30,000 in income.
Yep,
This,
that's
we don't see the income side of this part of it.
Right,
This is
that's
just the
what-
expense
I guess
side.
that's my question is-
So we budget for that, and it's 30,000, but it's really up and down. During COVID, we really saw people use their stimulus money, and we had some really nice donations we were able to contribute to the city. But it's been pretty good recently. We've been able to bring into 30 to 50,000, I think, in the recent years, and so that's been very nice benefit to be able to offset some of these costs. We do try and give back to the community, and I know we've given a lot back to the parks funds to be able to do some nice things at the ballpark if we can, and try to balance that out between multiple places in the city if we can. So it's really hard to know the exact amount because it's going to be up and down.
I
And
think that, in order to find a kind of a whole picture of you guys, if we can have that kind of mixed in here, kind of like to understand, you guys kind of set a grant.
so that's the next thing we want to talk about. So when we've done a really nice job of getting grants this year, which is awesome, but all of those expenses fall into our normal budget, and it looks like our numbers are inflated because we've got grant money. But it's not really inflated because we've gotten the grant piece to offset it. So I don't know if there's a way to have a separate line item for grants to be able to show, hey, that expense wasn't part of normal
Right,
operating
so I'd like to
expense.
see that so we can kind of get a true picture.
Yeah.
Because you guys are working hard to bring in those funds. And I'd love to see a goal, right, a goal of whatever, right? So are you guys seeking out a goal of $20,000 in grants for the year and things like that? So we can kind of, that would help on the budget side to kind of soften some of those numbers.
What we found on grants, and correct me, jump in if I'm wrong, but typically it goes in a cycle. So if we get a grant in 2025, if we apply in 26, we're not going to get it. And so usually it's every 2 or 3 years. We try to make sure we're hitting them all and doing them in a kind of rotation. And so we have really good luck with that. Usually we don't get it if we apply every year.
Correct.
Right,
And
so I work with a lot with grants, so I kind of understand, if you apply for grant A, you're not going to get it for the next 3 to 5 years, even if you did apply. But having that kind of that understanding, you guys, showing your work, right? So being able to show your work that you're doing. Some of the things I get concerned about on the granting side is you need X equipment that's $40,000, but you come up, you were able to get a grant of $20,000. Now where does that other $20,000, to take advantage of that grant? And so that's where I think we get some kind of blips in your guys' budget and what you're doing, and we have to pull from other sources, moving forward. So, it's just being able to have that total view, because you do have a revenue side to you. That would make sense to me to kind of show as we, maybe not the budget piece here, but as we move forward. So,
I agree that transparency would be excellent for, like you said, not only for the grants, but also like training reimbursements. Take for instance the meeting and education. There's a lot of reimbursements that's not reflected in there either. It would be nice if we could see those numbers reflected, because that's another line item that looks inflated that isn't. We get, reimbursement for that, and we don't have to spend as many of the tax dollars on that as what are, as what it shows. So it would, yes, I agree, that would be nice to have that
So,
shown.
It's not gonna change our revenues, it would just,
right,
you just break it out, so
Right.
it's not gonna change the
right.
number.
And I don't want to put a lot of burden back on the staff side to kind of do this. But for me, it helps out, because where I get, throughout the year, especially with the CIP, right? So we say that we're gonna put, $10,000 toward an F-250, and we're gonna buy it in 7 years. But all of a sudden, somebody comes up and thinks they need an end loader, and then we're moving that CIP money from that 250 to the end loader. And so I know that's, that isn't set in stone. These are, what we're gonna buy in 7 years, but it'd be nice to kind of know a little bit more of what's happening there. Just for me, I guess personally, just being able to say, we got one, say we got $1 million in CIP that we set aside for these large items, but that doesn't mean in 10 years, those are the large items that we needed through that 10 years. But it was good for us to have that.
So how we develop that is we try to focus on, I know there's a lot of numbers and there's a lot of stuff going on, but we try and focus on big ticket items. And so if it's a big ticket item, we try and get an estimate, maybe not every year, but periodically to just make sure we're staying current, and then it's on a schedule. So we have inflation kind of built into that and how much should be needed based on our periodic time of replacement. So that's how we're coming up to that number.
So, okay. Any more information that you guys want to kind of share with us, or any kind of questions from the council to the fire department?
I think that kind of covers our stuff.
When they used to buy little fire trucks, or the big ones are a lot more expensive.
I assume it does, but the new truck would fit in the current station.
We had a demo last year in the fence.
Another added advantage to the single axle over a tandem rear axle is the overall length of the vehicle.
We did, for your guys' information, we did have a demo unit last summer that they brought for a day, so we took it around different addresses in town, tried the reach thing out, tried the new townhouse on the east side of town. It does fit in the station, so we did try and check some of those boxes ahead of time.
They were gonna buy it and say it doesn't fit.
Now we need a new fire station. All right. Thanks, guys.
Have a good rest of your 9/8.
Yeah, have fun at training.
And feel free to take some subs and chips, guys.
I like that. It's much easier.
Vern, would the new truck
So,
be just red, like the rest of the
200
red
grand
trucks, or?
times 7 is 1.4 plus 7 is
Two-tone color with black and red.
2 point something.
Essentially.
We got iron and all that out for sure.
All right, so I will just touch on, a few of the spots that we have increases in. Starting with streets, the operating supplies, I increased by $500, just due to inflation and the price of everything going up. Same with repair and maintenance on the streets. I kept fuel and general maintenance the same for streets. And then overall I increased all of the clothing allowances by $50. And then for meeting and education under streets, I took the $2,500 that we had budgeted last year, I brought that back down to zero now that all of our full-time guys have their CDL. So there's no need to have the meeting and education for the streets. There's really no meetings or trainings for that.
Not to interrupt you, Andrew, but I might have accidentally left that one in there, so I will take that. Yep, I did. I will take that out. I forgot to take that one out, so.
Okay. And then on to the parks budget. For operating supplies, I increased that by $1,000. We're getting to the point of, we've had all of our fixtures for about 2 years now in the bathrooms for toilet paper and things like that, and they're starting to need to be replaced, and the toilet paper and paper towels for the bathrooms seems like every time we go in there it's another $10, $15 for the same amount of stuff, so. I increased the fuel by $5 just to make sure we're covered. That seems to be one of the bigger items that we use, or one of the bigger, most used line item for fuel out of all 5 departments. Repair and maintenance, I increased that by $5,000. As you can see, we're way over budget already this year on repair and maintenance. Some of that was with the fountain, but the stuff isn't getting any newer, and we're seeing a lot more failures and having to do a lot more repairs on all of the equipment in general, so that's why we increased that by $5,000. Professional services, I left that the same. Yep.
2024, you spent 30, 25, 2025, we've only spent 13. What did you keep that the same?
Say that again. Mayor, could you say that one?
So right now, you've got that at 65,000, right? In 2024, the actual was 30,000. And the actual date for 2025 is only 13,000.
I think I don't mean to speak on behalf of Andrew, you're under professional services, right? So we had beefed it up because we wanted to do more with trees, and I'm trying to think of, our lighting project is out of there. So there's like 20,000 that'll come out of there for the lighting project. For this year, we probably haven't gotten the invoice yet on that,
So
but
the 25,000 we set aside for Lake Eagle Park, or 20, whatever it was, from last year's, or from the 2025 budget comes out of that line item?
that's where we I don't think we've gotten an invoice yet from Plug, but that was where it would come out of, was professional services. Yep. And the other thing that could be, I don't know if this is what Andrew's thinking, but another thing in my head I'm thinking is just having enough money for tree removal, tree trimming, things like that in the parks, I guess. So I don't know what you're thinking on that. But
yeah, and I know sooner or later the ash borer is going to hit us, and it's going to hit us hard and bad. We've taken down a couple ash trees this year and have seen it in, for instance, the one right by the playground that we took out earlier this year, so it,
Three more red next to the playground.
yep, so.
Do you think, and Andrew might have forgotten that the 20,000 was in there for the lighting project, so I don't know if you did or not, but if you want to bump it or to drop it down, that would help significantly.
You guys have a list of projects that you're thinking, you just kind of have the rates. Because, it just looks a little weird that you only spend 13 and you want 65 next year.
Right, I think some of that can be used, also, we've had the edging for a couple years at Fraze Park, and we kind of put it off to decide what we were gonna do with Fraze Park. And right now with the park board, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't foresee any changes at Fraze Park. So we can have somebody put that edging in, and there's,
But I don't think that the numbers, it's just, if you have a list and estimates, when you come to try to spend it next year, you guys say, yeah, we talked about that 65, this is part of the 65.
right,
Just, just help me.
Once the streets start going, there'll be a lot of trees.
right.
I stand corrected, we have paid Plug, I just looked it up, so.
Because right now, we have, what's the balance, 50 million? We should go cut down about 30 trees.
So let's see, yeah,
We've already levied.
the
Right.
balance right now is
And-
32,900.
And that's where I tried to get that tree quote in, and I just haven't had time to get back to meeting with the contractors to, I mean, that's where some of the stuff we have to,
Again,
it's,
I'm used to budgeting like professional services and go into the leadership and say, I need 65 grand, and these are the projects I'm planning on doing. When we get to the end of the year, I need done 3 of those.
right,
But other things are popped up, but just
Yep.
having that initial list of, here's what we're trying to do with it.
right. Yeah, and like,
Reduce it, that'd be great, but, at least we know we've got things covered.
And I think that would help maybe from the park board standpoint, and I'm not expecting it for Thursday or anything, but like when we go, we always talk about what the budget is that the park board specifically has. But there's a lot of items that happen within the park that come out of your budget, and that's where we're always back and forth with, okay, whose budget is this out of? So I don't know that we need to go in depth at the park board meetings on this specific thing, but when we're talking of, we have 60,000 in our capital budget for park board, but we wanna adjust all of Fraze and do that, that's not cheap, or add different equipment. Where does some of this come out of? So,
Where adult me too is, okay, you wanna do 30,000 phrase, and you have a project on Lake Eagle Park for 30, then you can't do that this year.
yeah, so like, when we talk at Thursday's meeting, or any of those, when we're talking the professional services, I didn't know that the lights were part of that 65, or tree trimming, so like, to me, the professional services, when some of them are like CTS coming in and fixing equipment or that stuff, and I don't get that mindset of someone coming in and trimming trees, or, so maybe just having that understanding of what some of those projects would fall, what category those projects fall up, because I have no idea.
yeah, and like, if we would have went through with the original, tree quote that I brought, that would have been an extra 15,000 out of there. I'm hoping, I haven't even contacted any tree services since,
Here and there, but for next year, we're gonna have that in the budget to say,
right,
you blocked out 10 grand for this and 20 grand for this.
mm-hmm,
We can always move that around, it's not something we say, well, it's all in the list, we can do it. But we can't say, you can do that, but this one on your list with 5 categories.
right.
I mean, if there's a way, if after Andrew puts together his list, there's a way we could knock it down, even to 50,000, that would be nice. Just factoring in, because we did have that 20,000 for lights, I mean, that is a pretty big increase. But,
Like the tree trimming, I know it's hard to get multiple bids that sometimes if they don't get back to you, but some of it's timing of not waiting till the prime time in the spring when they're running out doing it, or, figuring out so that if we budget 15,000 for tree trimming, getting on it right away and contacting whoever needs to, so that we can actually get it done. and I know there's a lot going on and all that, but budgeting in and then making this happen, however we need to do that. So that we can hit and try and do that 15,000, 10,000, whatever we wanna do of tree trimming every year, so we don't get behind. I think that's what we, or at least I've been trying to push for, of like, stay caught up, or at least try to get closer to being caught up, so that we're not in this always playing catch-up.
Right, and I think one of the other things is, if we got toward the end of the year, we still had some money there in the levy that we've already levied, you know, can we get ahead for next year? You know, so, not that we reduce the levy, but we can, you know, like you said, I'm not sure, you know, we did the inventory, I can't, what's his name? The arborist that we have on staff?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, Luke. He did an inventory, and I can't remember the astronomical number of elm trees we have. That's gonna be a big number at some point, so if we can get some of those.
Do you think it's, not to beat this to death, but do you think, Andrew, that it's safe to assume that out of the 32,000 that's left, that not a whole lot of it's gonna get used yet this year, or what are your preliminary thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean,
If that's the case.
I would like to get a lot of tree trimming and tree removal done yet, but I don't think, you know, that's not gonna touch the 52,000, no.
No, it's 32,000, guys, just so everybody knows, 32,000 left.
Oh, yeah, on my sheet it says
Oh.
50.
You're taking the 20
52.
out already, right, is what you're doing?
You gotta,
Well, there was $65,000 budgeted, and then year-to-date expenses are 32, and that includes the 20,000.
So that's what I was looking at, was on our sheet.
so in 2025 budget, we've got 65,000, 2025 year-to-date
So
That's not what
this
ours,
sheet
was 12.5,
where my actual
the
budget.
balance of 52.
When was that?
that's not showing,
This,
That's a-
815.
I don't know, that doesn't match up.
Well, I think one is we can.
Oh, that would have been after Plugsing was deducted then.
so-
Yeah, that would
so
be the
like
20,000,
This one was
so.
printed on 9.
Yeah.
Oh, the one you're saying is got the Plug number in it, but this one doesn't?
In the current one that I have in you guys' packet shows year-to-date numbers. And Andrew has an old one for when he did his budget worksheet that showed what the
Oh, this is your
year-to-date was at
budget
that
worksheet.
point.
Yep.
I wasn't understanding. But I guess there are a couple different things, and if we're not gonna use it, we definitely should,
Yeah,
and
I
I
would-
don't recommend it, but normally, but I think in this case, we need to try to keep the levy as low as possible. If the council would be willing at an upcoming meeting to, you know, carry forward some of those
Well,
monies.
that's one of the ones too, that I don't know if I'd want to tie it to last year's budget, because if you came up and said, I only have a list of 30,000, it's 30,000. If you came and said it's 75,000, then we'd have to have a discussion.
That's what I mean, so we can reduce that 65,000 in 2026, we can reduce that number down. Yep, yeah.
But we don't want to reduce it to get in arrears as we try to move forward.
Right.
And so, you know, we've got 700 elm trees to take down between now and 10 years. Let's take down, you know, 15.
We were trying to do 10 a year, so that's what I think we need to get back
But
to.
this
is
year
just-
we haven't done anything yet, right?
No.
I don't believe so, because he had
No.
brought forth the quote, and then I think the decision was the council didn't feel comfortable approving it because they didn't want to just approve a number, they wanted to know exactly what trees, and I think that's where we ran into a little bit of an
Right.
issue.
So,
Okay. Horse is dead, cat is flat.
Huh?
Cat is flat, as they say.
Oh.
And, I'm old. I guess.
Oh.
all right, so moving on, I don't know why in 2025 there wasn't a clothing allowance budget, but I brought that back up. It should have been 800, and then I increased that by 50, so 850.
That's another couple of things, right? So I understand why we break things up. So we can kind of have a balance of, you know, because you're allocating, right? You're allocating your expenses across 4
5 budgets.
budget, 5. So
So I think
Breaking those
what
up.
would help me too, so the Public Works Department has all of their, we go with Vestas and they do your jeans, your shirts,
Just our jeans.
they launder the jeans, we see a bill from that. And then the Public Works, you guys go out and buy all your clothes. And then they also have a boot allowance, safety boot allowance, which will be recommending that formally be increased to $200. So, that should fit within there, between the 5 departments, so that should cover
I was gonna
everything.
ask at the end, but the boot allowance that we're recommending that currently sits as every other year, correct?
Every
Right.
2 years.
Yeah, so every other year you'd get it. You put in for a boot allowance every year then? I mean, you factored in enough for going every year?
It could be $100 every year, but now
Okay.
it'd be, so we'll just factor in $1,000 a year.
So instead of 200 every other, we're doing 100 every year?
200 every year. If you guys want everybody to have $200 a year to spend on safety boots, then it'd be $1,000 that we're factoring for the department.
Okay,
for
so,
safety
so
boots.
that potential change is factored in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As part of the closing allowance, or do we have a boot budget?
We don't have a boot budget.
All right, moving on to storm. There hasn't really been much of a change with storm, except for the clothing allowance again. I just added $50 to that. Meeting and education, I didn't fill that out, just because we're between myself, Jennifer, and Mike, for sure, we all have to renew all of our stormwater permits and licensing, and I couldn't remember what it cost last time for us to do that, so I just left that open and,
But we all three are up for renewal in 2026.
right.
Is the ISG constant here?
Yes.
And then,
And I haven't,
yeah, so
I
like,
haven't
Oh, you haven't
updated
added your stuff?
the enterprise budgets yet, no.
so like for professional services, I left that blank because I don't use any money in the professional services really for,
ISG is, okay.
so I didn't know what that budget number should be.
I don't care if they get his wish, we may be able to get out of it. We may be able to get out of it.
They haven't gotten back to us yet, or, you know, when we were at that meeting.
Right.
So I'm not looking good.
Moving on to the water fund, operating supplies, I increased that by 3,000. Seems like everything is just getting more expensive, chemicals. We've been noticing our, chemical tubing and things that we use just isn't holding up as good. You name it, it just doesn't last as long. Fuel, I left the same. And then repair and maintenance, I increased that by 5,000. In the last couple of years, we've seen kind of an increase in water main breaks and, you know, our wells aren't getting any newer. All of our control panels and things like that, you know, if something goes wrong on that stuff, it's all more expensive, and now that it's up to date. And then yeah, so I think that's about it on that. Professional services, I think that was all for the water treatment plant, so I don't even,
We'll get that stuff cleaned up. It's, these things are hard right now, and you'll see in the general fund too, or engineering, I have to work with our auditors to figure out how we get that out, because it's a project expense. It's not a normal, so it skews the budget. So, well, we'll work that out. But for now, that's where it's sitting. But
and then clothing allowance, another $50 increase. And then meeting and education, I increased that by 500. We used to have a bunch of offers for free classes, and those are kind of dwindling, and now they're, you know, $300-400 per class, so. Sewer fund, I increased the operating supplies by $1,000 just for normal supplies that we use. The repair and maintenance, I kept that the same. And then increased our professional services by 3,000. And that's where like the sewer cleaning and annual inspections and things like that come out of. And then the same thing as water, I added an extra $500 for meeting and education. And that's all I got. I know there's, in the capital outlay, there's a couple, I think, I'm trying to remember, I think it's just one F-150 this year that would come out of the capital outlay. All right.
You have the F-150
Yeah, so it'd be.
and the wood chipper?
Yeah, and as of right now, we're thinking about just wiping the wood chipper out. We've been burning all of our branches and brush and tree stuff on top of where we put our leaves, so instead of putting money towards that, when we can just burn it and spend, half a day making sure the whole farm field doesn't start on fire, I think that's a better cost on the city. So this year would just be the F-150.
Do you think, okay, so I had included the 33,000 for the wood chipper, I can take that out. Do you think the 46,818 is enough for the F-150?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Just,
Is it gonna have doors?
the last I talked to our sales rep from Ford, they were, yeah, yep. They were waiting to see what the, like the state contract was, which usually comes out in September-ish, and I haven't heard anything, so, but depending on between that and then just like the strobe lights and stuff, it shouldn't be a huge cost.
And then the amount that we set aside, then it looks like is 123,866. That's just kind of following the schedule here on the replacement. So I put that in there for set aside.
Yeah, and then, under the parks capital outlay, it looks like 2 mowers this year. And the John Deere, we might be able to revisit that and push that off a little bit, just because we haven't been using it that much since we got the 2 zero turns. So, nope, the other one, the one with the blower on it. So. Yeah, like the one with the sweeper, we don't even have on the capital outlay on here. I think, no, that should be the, that one is the latest, or the oldest Bobcat that we got, and I'm trying to think. So there's a 23 Bobcat, and then there's a 24 Bobcat. So that country clipper should be the Bobcat that we bought in 24.
So the zero turns are 3 years? Like,
What was that?
the zero turns are 3 years?
Yep, yep. So right now, the one that we would be replacing is the least one that we have. currently. Yes, yep.
Well, if you guys don't have any more questions for Andrew, maybe I could, so I'll make the adjustments that I noted with the fire department and that 25,000, and then bring that back to the council to be able to carry forward this year, so we can take that out of, what they have, so we can take that off of what we have, that will help tremendously. But other than that, and that should be able to bring us down maybe to 6%, I'll have to run the numbers, but how does the council feel comfort-wise with, and then you don't have to make a decision tonight, but just kind of looking at the preliminary levy, so we'll have another meeting where we have to set that, certify it by September 30th. And then you can go down after that. We just can't go higher. So it's just something to kind of mull over between now and our next meeting, and your comfort level. Because whatever you adopt, when the preliminary levy is set, that's what people are going to see when they get their proposed property tax statements. So
I think the big thing for me is just not I feel like we've done a good job, or you guys have done a good job trying to be more proactive on streets or trees, whatever it is. So not losing that and keeping that momentum going forward. The pond looks great. The parks are looking phenomenal, but all it takes is just 1 year of not doing something, and then we get behind really quickly. So whatever that means to make sure we're staying ahead of things or on top of them, including, I know it's been brought up several times, the chairs in here or the carpet, like making sure that we have those even small dollar items in there so that when that time does come, it doesn't totally blow the budget or take everything out or have to have those unexpected costs that we keep getting that aren't part of the budget, and now we're moving things
Yeah,
differently.
I hate to take the beating of the levy and then not spend it appropriately, right? So being able to kind of make sure we plan appropriate through the year, that we can kind of
well, and if there's
use what we need to use. I don't
right.
wanna go spend because it's gonna-
I mean,
We
they've
were
been,
planning on a new fire truck, but it wasn't a ladder.
but they just don't have enough money, obviously, to buy a new one. So, yeah. But to Beth's point and the mayor's point, I guess the thing too, I feel like if there's a place you want to put money, which is needed, it's in these set-asides for capital outlay, because we absolutely, with the roof, we're depleting what we have for general government.
You know, I'd like to see a capital
You can't go
outlay.
wrong in those situations.
I'd like to see a capital outlay line item for all the buildings.
We do have it, it's a set-aside. Well, I mean, it might not be labeled the way you're thinking, but we do, like, City Hall has one. I guess you're right, we don't have one maybe specifically in, like, Public Works, but,
Well, that's gonna be 90 grand to replace that roof. And,
yeah.
if people keep running into it, maybe we'll just put
Yeah.
a garage door there instead of the window.
Yeah, so we can add one to the street, or I don't know where we want to put it, we just put it in general government, I guess.
And then do we have somewhere that, because I know we've talked about the cameras here work really good and it's good to have. We've talked cameras, especially on the outside, specifically, I guess, on the outside of Public Works.
Yep, waiting on pricing for that, I've not heard back yet.
So having some of those, or
Yep.
the water treatment facility, is the lobbyist still being used, all of those pieces that are pretty big projects coming up, that do we need to be having funds set aside for now for 'em?
We do have 20,000 set aside for lobbying funds, but I wanted to talk to you guys about that coming up, because I know the mayor might have been on an email I sent, but I was just wondering if they were gonna charge us again this year. There had been a clause in our contract that if there wasn't a special session, that, or a bonding bill passed, that they wouldn't charge us. Well, then there was that really small bonding bill that got passed. It didn't include anything that we needed. And so I haven't heard back from them on that, but I'm kind of leery about spending another 20 grand
I think we need
at
to
this point,
take a look to see.
so. But it's in the
Reduce that
budget.
If nothing else, right? So, if we can reduce that.
Yep.
I still like the idea of having them on retainer if whatever, if we need to get, because they have just so much access that we're gonna have. But being able to shrink that number would be
Right.
good.
So I'm not saying to add a whole bunch of money in here, I'm just,
No,
I like where we're sitting, I just don't want to, fall behind either, where then it's
Right.
where we're at with the streets right now, and trying to play catch up.
Right, and I think in recent years, the council's done a really good job of, keeping up with equipment, getting new equipment. It makes the operations much more efficient, and I feel like we're on the right track, as you guys are saying, and just keeping that momentum going. And we're a nice community, but nice communities take money to have nice things happen, to have nice parks, and that's one thing. You know, the council's been really good about setting aside money for the parks, and just gotta keep doing that, because it's just an ongoing investment you have to make, and so.
And just having the equipment is huge. Like, when we trimmed all the trees on Creekside, we used the payloader and the grapple bucket, you know, and cut everything and threw it in the bucket and loaded our big trucks with it. Where before, we always used to have to, you know, use the skid loader and the 1-ton, and you could only haul about 1/8 of what you can in the big trucks. So, you know, we'd still be working on Creekside if it wasn't for all the equipment and stuff that we've been accumulating over the years.
Not to keep talking about equipment, but I just think back to, I don't know, well, Nick, I don't know if you were in town when we had the old leaf vac. Do you remember that? I think everybody else here probably remembers that. That was a sad sight. It was awful. We had to have two. Oh, it was bad. This new leaf vac is really slick. It only takes one person, but the other one I think took 3 people sometimes, right? They have to get out and direct the hose to go get the leaves. I mean, that is a perfect example of efficiency, and the residents I know are really happy with that upgrade. It's really been good, so. But at the time, it was a big expense, and we weren't sure about, it was the right decision, but it was
I
good.
never in a million years would have thought a leaf vac would be $200,000. Nick was like, what? But, you know, over 10 years, the model. You spend $6 for an electric one that only goes 20 miles, but. No, I think we're kind of in a good spot. I think 7 is kind of, you know, look to see, you know, your guys' reaction to 7% levy. You know, be good or bad, right? So 7% sounds like a big number, but when you look at it in actual dollars, it's not too bad, but it's always a percentage. And being in between what's happening kind of around the area, I feel comfortable with that. Like you said, you know, you've done a good job of not putting any fluff in here. I think the council gets concerned that we don't have enough, you know, not rainy day, but, you know, like this year. Who would have thought we'd have to pay $100,000 for a roof? You know, so being able to go and just make sure we have, you know, the new car account and the camper account. You know, so being able to have those set aside dollars.
I think by the next meeting, what Andrew and I will work together on and get you guys a sheet that summarizes kind of what you guys are talking about, seeing out, you know, 10 years for City Hall building or Public Works. And we don't know all the expenses, but we can just try to do our best, and
right,
that we
so-
can start, so everybody can see it.
$90,000, you know, the chillers are gonna be another $90,000-100,000, you know, when those have to be replaced.
The warning sirens, I think they're about $20,000-30,000 now, and thankfully Blue Earth County got us, how much?
Are there any other
There's like 45.
big capital numbers like that?
But fortunately, Blue Earth County got us a grant, or they got a grant for that one, and that was amazing.
Well, that's what I like too, is if we have that 10-year plan and we're watching the grants, it's like, oh, you know, that, the sirens are 3 years out, but there's a grant right now. You know, let's, you know, potentially move some things around, not to take advantage of some of that granting opportunity.
Something else I should mention in the budget too, that I guess I didn't address it, and I'm just thinking about it. I'm sorry I'm out of order here, but we had a community development coordinator position, and since we haven't filled the position, kind of hit the pause button on that. I did leave in, and I switched it to just professional services, and I left in $45,500. And that's because we need to get done a comprehensive plan. If we need to hire a consultant to do, which we would have a consultant do, or some other economic development strategic plan related process, that's what that money is in there for, so. Other than that, I think I hit the high points, but.
Any other
So.
questions, concerns, directions? Anything more from staff? Perfect. think we can adjourn.
Before we do that, I guess I lied. Could we all look at our calendars and try to schedule that next meeting?
She always does that.
Oh, sorry. So we need to set it, obviously, we don't want to be cutting it down too close, but we have to certify by the 30th. Is there anything possibly,
The
let's see,
30th of October? Or
September?
September.
So maybe we could look at either the week of the, sorry, I'm just looking the mid to late of the 15th or the week of the 22nd. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So we're probably looking at the week of the 22nd. Thank you.
24th works well for me.
Looks like the city hall would be open if that works. So,
I'm supposed to have a meeting at 7:30, but I can jump on virtually afterwards, this McHale meeting that morning.
Are we talking morning or?
Or are you doing night?
should we do night? Kara's like, I don't want to do morning. No, we could do a nighttime meeting. Do you want to do, just 5? Oh, what time is that?
It's 5 to 6.
Well, okay.
Or virtually to them, so.
Should we do,
It works best for everybody.
okay. You guys pick the time.
Look at, 6, perfect.
Okay. 24th at 6 o'clock.
24th at 6.
And I'll get you the materials.
Certifying the levy to go to the state, right?
Yep, and I'll try to get the materials out to you by the 18th, then, review.
Anything else?
Going once, going twice, no, nothing else. Thanks for your time tonight.
For a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All right. Thanks, everybody.